The steam from the shower still hung thick in the air like a veil of secrets when the back door rattled, not with the wind, but with the unmistakable click of a latch giving way. I froze under the spray, water cascading over my bare skin, heart pounding as if it could shatter the tiles. And then he was there, silhouetted against the dying light of the Brooklyn afternoon. A stranger with rain-slicked hair and eyes that locked onto mine like he'd been searching for this exact moment his whole damn life. "What the fuck are you doing in here?" I snarled, snatching the threadbare towel from the rack, wrapping it around my waist as fury and fear twisted into something sharper, more primal. My voice echoed off the cracked subway tiles. But he didn't flinch, just stood there, dripping onto my kitchen linoleum, his chest heaving like he'd run from the ghosts of his own regrets. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words cracking like thunder in the silence, his gaze dropping to the floor before snapping back up, raw and unapologetic. I thought this was good. I don't know what I thought. But now that I'm here, seeing you like this, naked, real, I can't just walk away. I should have called the cops. Should have shoved him out into the storm and bolted every lock on my crumbling brownstone walk-up. But in that suspended heartbeat, with the city howling outside and my pulse roaring in my ears, something in his voice hooked into me, a desperation that mirrored the ache I'd been drowning in for months. Had left me 6 weeks ago, packing his vinyl collection and his lies into a U-Haul, vanishing into the neon haze of Manhattan like I'd been nothing more than a pit stop. I'd been unraveling ever since, nights blurring into shots of cheap whiskey and mornings staring at the ceiling, wondering if love was just another con job in this godforsaken city. The stranger, his name was Elias. I learned later. But in that moment, he was just a trespasser with a jaw carved from marble and eyes the color of smoked whiskey, didn't move. Rain pattered against the window panes like impatient fingers, and the air between us thickened with the scent of ozone and my eucalyptus body wash. "Look," he said, raising his hands in surrender, palms scarred from what looked like old burns. "I live 2 floors up. The super's been dodging my calls about the leak in my ceiling, your floor. Apparently. I came down to check the pipe myself. And the door. It was ajar. I didn't mean to. Bullshit," I cut him off, stepping closer, the towel slipping a fraction as adrenaline surged. Water droplets traced paths down my chest, and I hated how exposed I felt, not just physically but stripped bare in ways I couldn't name. Brooklyn had a way of doing that, peeling back your layers until you were raw meat under the streetlights. "You expect me to believe you just waltzed into a stranger's apartment mid-shower? In this neighborhood? Try again." He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing, and for a split second, vulnerability cracked his facade, a flicker of something haunted, like he'd been the one caught naked first. But not all of it. "I saw you through the window earlier. From my fire escape. You were pacing, yelling into your phone. Sounded like the end of the world. I don't know why, but it hit me. I've been there. And when the door swung open, I guess I was hoping to play the hero or something stupid like that. The word landed like a punch. Jordan had called himself that once, back when we'd first met at that dive bar in Williamsburg, trading stories over lukewarm IPAs about bad breakups and worse jobs. He'd been my knight in faded flannel, sweeping me off my feet with whispers of forever amid the graffiti-strewn alleys. But here was this intruder, offering the same delusion wrapped in a soaked hoodie and a crooked smile that tugged at something dormant in my chest. I left. A bitter bark that echoed hollowly. Hero? Save it for the movies. Get out. But even as I said it, my feet didn't move. The rain picked up, drumming a frantic rhythm. And Elias, I didn't know his name yet, shifted his weight, glancing at the puddle forming at his boots. Name's Elias, he said, as if reading my mind, extending a hand that I ignored. And yours, Cameron, I muttered, the word tasting foreign on my tongue, like admitting it made this real. Now, seriously, out. He nodded, slow and deliberate, but paused at the threshold, turning back with eyes that held mine captive. If you ever need to yell about the end of the world, my door's the one with the busted lock. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. And then he was gone, swallowed by the storm, leaving me shivering in the sudden chill, towel clutched like a lifeline. That night, sleep evaded me like a bad habit. I tossed on sheets that still smelled faintly of Jordan's cologne, sandalwood and regret, replaying the intrusion in my mind. Who the hell does that? Bursts into a guy's life, literally, and drops a line like he owns the narrative? But beneath the anger simmered curiosity. A spark I hadn't felt since Jordan's last "I love you" turned to ash. By dawn, with the sky bleeding pink over the East River, I found myself staring at the ceiling crack that mirrored the one Elias must have been cursing upstairs. Work dragged, freelance graphic design for indie bands that paid in exposure and ramen. My studio in Bushwick was a chaos of mood boards and half-empty coffee mugs. The kind of place that screamed, "starving artist," to anyone who glanced twice. By noon, my inbox pinged with a rejection email from a label I'd poured my soul into, and something snapped. I grabbed my keys, climbed the rickety stairs to the 3rd floor, and knocked on 3B before I could talk myself out of it. The door swung open, and there he was, Elias, sans rien, in a threadbare tee that hugged his lean frame, tattooed arms crossed like a barrier. His hair was a tousled mess, and those whiskey eyes widened in surprise. Cameron, he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he'd been practicing. Didn't expect the cavalry. More like the idiot who can't let go of a bad idea, I shot back, shoving a 6-pack of cheap beer into his hands. Truce? Or whatever this is. He stepped aside, a grin breaking through like sunlight on pavement. The apartment was a mirror of mine, peeling wallpaper, exposed brick, a view of the same fire escape, but his felt lived in, cluttered with dog-eared paperbacks and a guitar leaning against the wall like an old friend. We cracked beers on his sagging couch, the awkwardness dissolving into stories swapped over the fizz of aluminum. Turned out Elias was a barista by day, musician by night, chasing gigs in lofts that smelled of weed and desperation. He'd moved to New York from some nowhere town in Ohio 2 years back, fleeing a family that still sent passive-aggressive postcards about finding Jesus. They don't get it, he said, voice low as he strummed an absent chord on air. The music, the guys. Me. His eyes met mine, and there it was, the unspoken pull, electric and undeniable. I nodded. Throw tight. Yeah. My folks in Seattle? They think I'm going through a phase. Jordan was the phase. Apparently. Or so he said when he bailed for that producer in Chelsea. Elias's laugh was warm, wrapping around me like a blanket. Phases. What a crock. Life's all phases until it's not. He leaned in close enough that I could smell the faint trace of his soap, citrus, and smoke, and for the first time in weeks, the ache in my chest eased into something softer, like the first thaw after winter. We talked until the beers ran dry and the city lights flickered on, painting his face in gold. When he brushed my hand reaching for the last can, neither of us pulled away. It was tentative. That touch, a question hanging in the air. I answered by closing the distance, our lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of hops and hesitation, then hunger. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and suddenly the world narrowed to the heat of his skin, the rhythm of his breath syncing with mine. That night, we didn't sleep. We mapped each other in the dim glow of his bedside lamp, bodies tangling like we'd been starved for this connection. Elias moved with a gentleness that belied his rough edges, whispering my name like a prayer, drawing out confessions I'd buried deep. "You're beautiful," he murmured against my collarbone. And for once, I believed it, not as flattery, but as truth etched into my bones. By morning, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, I felt reborn. New York, with its relentless grind and heartbreak alleys, had thrown me a curveball in the form of a naked intruder. And damn if it wasn't the best mistake I'd ever made. But life in the boroughs doesn't stay poetic for long. A week blurred into stolen afternoons, coffee runs turning into makeout sessions in alleyways, late-night jam sessions where his guitar wove melodies around my sketches. Elias had this way of seeing me, really seeing the frayed edges Jordan had ignored, the dreams I'd shelved for stability. "You're going places, Kem," he'd say, tracing the lines of my latest design with calloused fingers. "Don't let this city grind you down." I wanted to believe him. Good. I did. But shadows lingered. Elias dodged questions about his family, his scars, those faint burns on his palms from a kitchen mishap back home. And then there were the late nights he'd vanish for gigs, coming back with hollow eyes and whiskey on his breath that wasn't from the stage. One evening, as autumn leaves skittered across McCarran Park like discarded love notes, I pressed him. We were sprawled on a bench, his head in my lap, the skyline jagged against the sunset. "What's the ghost, Elias? The one that keeps you up?" He stiffened, sitting up slow, gaze fixed on the horizon. "It's nothing you need to carry, but I did need to, because love, real love, isn't a solo act." I cupped his face, forcing those eyes to mine. "Try me," the words spilled then, jagged and reluctant. Ohio wasn't just nowhere, it was a cage of small-town bigotry. A father who preached fire and brimstone from the pulpit. A mother who looked the other way when the bruises bloomed. Elias had come out at 17, guitar in hand as armor, only to wake up to flames licking the garage where his prized Fender had been stored. Arson? They called it. No arrests. Just whispers of faggot in the pews and a one-way ticket to Penn Station. "Fuck," I breathed, pulling him close, his body trembling against mine. "That's not nothing. That's..." "I'm so sorry," he shrugged. But the pain etched deep. "It's why I play. Why I fight. Music's the only thing that doesn't burn." We kissed then, fierce and anchoring, the park fading around us. In that moment, I vowed silently I'd be his unburnable thing. His safe harbor in this storm of a city. Weeks turned to a fragile rhythm. I landed a gig designing album art for an up-and-coming queer folk band, Elias's Connections. His quiet nudge, and he showed up to my first pitch meeting with coffee and that crooked smile. Proud as if it were his win too. Nights were ours, cooking pasta in my kitchen, burnt edges and all. Debating Scorsese films until dawn. Bodies entwined in a dance that felt like home. But cracks spiderwebbed. Jordan texted out of the blue one Tuesday, "Miss you." Drinks. And I deleted it. But the doubt lingered like smog. Was I just rebounding? Elias, with his guarded heart, seemed too good, too haunted to be mine. Then came the night I found the letter tucked in his guitar case, a crumpled envelope from Ohio, postmarked weeks ago. Come home, son. We've prayed. Forgiveness awaits. Dad. He caught me reading it, face paling. Why didn't you tell me? Hurt laced my voice, sharp as shattered glass. You let me think you were all in, but you're still half stuck there? It's not like that. He reached for me, but I stepped back. The towel from our first meeting flashing in my mind, a symbol of barriers we'd barely breached. I burned that bridge. But family. It's complicated. Complicated. I laughed. Hello. My ex-bailing was complicated. This is you keeping one foot out the door. The fight escalated, words flying like shrapnel. He accused me of projecting Jordan's ghosts. I hurled back that he was the ghost, haunting his own life. Door slammed. His, and silence stretched like a chasm. Days bled into avoidance. I buried myself in work, sketching faces that blurred between Elias's sharp angles and Jordan's softer ones. The band gig extended, pulling me into late nights at lofts in Greenpoint, where the air hummed with possibility and the kind of queer energy that made New York feel alive. But without him, it rang hollow. Then, the betrayal hit like a freight train. It was a Thursday, rain lashing the streets again, when I swung by his building for a peace offering, takeout from that Thai place we loved. Heartsick apology on my lips. The door to 3B was cracked, voices murmuring inside. I pushed in, heart in throat, and froze. Elias, shirtless on the couch, tangled with a guy I vaguely recognized from his open mic nights, tall, with a laugh that cut through me. They sprang apart, Elias's face draining of color. Shit. It's not. The Thai bag hit the floor, fragrant steam curling like accusations. How long? My voice was steel, but inside, I was crumbling. It's nothing. A mistake. He was just here. Elias stood, reaching, but the other guy, Mark, his name was, smirked, zipping his jeans with infuriating calm. Doesn't look like nothing, I said, backing toward the door. Memories flooded, our first kiss, his whispers in the dark, the way he'd held me after nightmares of Jordan. All ash now. Cameron, please. Elias's plea cracked, eyes pleading. I fucked up. After our fight, I drank too much. He showed up. But it's you. Always you. The rain outside mocked me. Relentless. I wanted to believe him, gut. The pull was still there. Magnetic and maddening. But trust, once shattered, leaves shards that cut deep. You crept into my life once, I whispered, echoing our beginning. Now you're creeping out. Don't follow. I fled down the stairs, the storm swallowing my sobs, the city a blur of taillights and regret. Back in my apartment, I stripped to skin, stepping under the shower's scalding spray, willing the water to wash away the ache. But it clung, stubborn as love's aftertaste. The next weeks were a descent. Work faltered, sketches turned abstract, all jagged lines and shadowed forms. Friends, sparsely scattered queer souls from the scene, dragged me to bars, but the flirtations felt like echoes. One night, buzzed on gin at a drag show in the village. I hooked up with a dancer named Riley, all lithe grace and easy laughs. Was mechanical, a bandage over the wound, but in the morning light of his walk-in closet of an apartment, guilt gnawed. Elias's face haunted me, those whiskey eyes, now probably dulled by his own remorse. He tried reaching out, texts that went unread. A mixtape slipped under my door with tracks we'd danced to, his scrawled note pleading, "Let me make it right. I'm all in now." No ghosts. I burned it in the sink, watching flames lick the paper, whispering apologies to the smoke. But New York has a way of circling back, like the subway lines that loop endless. The band's album launch was at a warehouse in Red Hook. Bass thumping through rusted beams, bodies swaying under strobing lights. I went for the paycheck, the closure of handing over the art that had saved me briefly. And there he was, Elias, in the crowd, nursing a beer, eyes finding mine across the throng like a beacon. He didn't approach until the encore faded, the crowd thinning to stragglers. I was packing my portfolio when his shadow fell over me. Cam, one word, and the dam cracked. Burned, anger flaring, but it dissolved into exhaustion. "What do you want, Elias? To explain? To fuck up again?" He looked wrecked, hollow cheeks, unshaven, the guitar case at his feet like a shield. "To say I'm sorry. For the kiss with Mark. For the walls I built. For not seeing how much you were giving when I was still half broken." His voice trembled. But mostly, to tell you I love you. Not as a phase. Not as a rebound. As the guy who crept into my heart and refused to leave. The warehouse echoed empty, distant laughter filtering from the bar. The word hung, heavy and healing. I thought of Jordan's betrayal. Clean and surgical, Elias's was messy. Human, a stumble in the dark. And in that mess, I'd found pieces of myself I didn't know were missing. "I love you too," I admitted, the confession slipping free like a breath held too long. "But trust. Earned? Not owed." He nodded, stepping closer. "Tentative. Then let me earn it. Starting now." We left together, arms brushing as we navigated the docks, the East River lapping black and forgiving. No grand gestures, no cinematic rain-soaked reunion, just two guys, scarred and hopeful, walking into the night. Months later, as winter gripped the city in icy fingers, we moved in together, my place, his guitar propped against the wall like a promise kept. The leaks were fixed, the ghosts exorcised with late-night talks and therapy sessions paid in freelance scraps. Elias's band got a manager, my designs hit a gallery show in Soho. Life wasn't perfect, arguments flared over burnt dinners. Old insecurities whispered in quiet hours, but it was ours, woven from the threads of that naked intrusion. One evening, fire escape perch our ritual, turned to me, snowflakes dusting his lashes. You know, creeping into your shower was the best bad decision I ever made. I left, pulling him close, our breaths mingling in the cold. And letting you stay? Mine. In the end, love isn't the absence of betrayal or pain. It's the choice to rebuild, brick by human brick, in a city that chews up dreams and spits out survivors. Elias and I, we're still building. And damn if it doesn't feel like home. The first real test came not with fireworks, but with the quiet drip of everyday erosion. Spring thawed Brooklyn's concrete veins, turning slush to puddles that mirrored the tentative bloom in our shared space. Elias's records stacked haphazardly beside my drafting table, his coffee mugs clinking against my paintbrushes in the sink, a domestic symphony that lulled me into complacency. But complacency, learned, is the velvet glove over doubt's iron fist. It started with a call. I was mid-sketch, charcoal smudging my fingers black as midnight, when my phone buzzed with an Ohio area code. Elias snatched it before I could, his face shuddering like a storm front. "Dad," he muttered, stepping onto the fire escape, voice dropping to a murmur I couldn't catch. Jealousy? Not quite. More like the echo of exclusion, a reminder that parts of him remained locked in vaults I couldn't pick. When he came back in, cheeks flushed from the chill, he forced a smile. "Just checking in." "Old habits." I set the charcoal down, wiping my hands on my jeans. "Habits like lying?" His eyes narrowed, defensive. I wasn't, "It's nothing." He wants me to visit for Mom's birthday. I said no. The air thickened, unspoken histories coiling between us. And if he pushes? If forgiveness sounds good on a bad day? Elias laughed, sharp and deflecting, pulling me into a hug that smelled of his shift at the cafe, espresso and faint sweat. "You're my family now." End of story. But his grip was too tight, his heartbeat erratic against my chest. I let it go, melting into the kiss that followed, but the seed was planted, that insidious weed in love's garden. Work pulled us in opposite directions. My days bled into freelance marathons for a queer lit mag, illustrations of intertwined bodies that blurred the line between art and autobiography. Elias's nights stretched at open mics, chasing that elusive break in a city where talent drowned in mediocrity. We'd collapse into bed at odd hours, limbs entangled, whispers bridging the gap. "Missed you," he'd murmur, fingers tracing the curve of my hip, reigniting the fire that had drawn us here. But the letter from his father lingered like a specter, resurfacing in passive jabs. One night, after a gig where he dedicated a song to "the guy who saved me from myself," we fought over nothing, a misplaced lyric sheet. Really? But it unearthed the Ohio wound. "You think I'm gonna run back to that poison?" he yelled, voice bouncing off the brick walls. "I think you're scared," I shot back, standing toe-to-toe in our cramped kitchen, the sizzle of forgotten stir-fry burning acrid in the air. "Scared that loving me means letting go for real. That maybe Dad's forgiveness is just another chain." He recoiled as if slapped, eyes glistening. "You don't get it. You had Seattle, progressive, accepting. I had fire and brimstone. It's not fear, it's survival." The words hung, a chasm widening. I reached for him, apology on my lips, but he shrugged away, grabbing his jacket. "I need air." The door clicked shut, leaving me with the smoke alarm's wail and the sting of tears. He returned at dawn, sheepish with bagels and a bruised ego. And we patched it with lazy morning sex, slow, exploratory, reaffirming what words couldn't. But fractures don't heal overnight, they scar. Tender to the touch. Summer scorched in, turning our apartment into a sweatbox of fans and iced teas. The band's momentum built, a demo tape circulating, whispers of a label scout, and Elias glowed, the haunted shadows lifting. We celebrated with a rooftop party in Bushwick, fairy lights strung like stars, bodies grinding to indie beats under a bruised purple sky. I watched him from across the crowd, laughing with bandmates, his energy magnetic, and pride swelled in my chest. This was us, resilient, radiant. Then Jordan reappeared, a ghost in human form, sliding into my DMs with, "Heard your art's blowing up." Coffee? For old times. I blocked him, but the ripple spread. Elias found out at the worst moment, post-party hangover, nursing coffees on the stoop. "You should have told me," he said, voice edged with something darker than hurt. "What if I wasn't enough? What if you still..." "Stop." I gripped his knee, the wrought iron steps digging into my thighs. Jordan's history. "You're the plot twist that stuck." He searched my face. Vulnerability raw. Then nodded, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of orange juice and trust renewed. But trust is a house of cards in hurricane season. The high crashed with the scout's email. Interest? But conditional, a showcase in Manhattan, requiring a clean image. Elias's. His edge, they wanted polished. "It's business," he told me that night, pacing our living room, guitar forgotten. One compromise for the door. I saw the trap. The slow erosion of self. "Or what? You sell your soul for a spotlight." His laugh was bitter. Says the guy freelancing for mags that pay peanuts. Dreams cost. Cam. The bar landed. Reopening old insecurities, my stalled career. The safety I'd clung to while he risked all. We didn't speak for days. Coexisting in icy politeness. The apartment a minefield of silences. Reconciliation came unexpectedly, a rainy afternoon. Me sketching his profile from memory, him catching me at it. "That's me." Wonder softened his tone as he traced the lines, strong jaw, eyes alight with unspoken songs. "Always you," I whispered. And the dam broke. We made love on the floor, urgent and unhurried, reclaiming territory lost to doubt. Afterward, tangled and sated, he confessed the scout call, he turned it down. Not worth losing who I am. Who we are. Relief flooded me. But so did fear, this path was thorns, not roses. In his arms, it felt navigable. Autumn whispered in with crisp leaves and shorter days. Our rhythm steadying. We adopted a rescue mutt, Rusty, all wiry fur and wagging optimism, from a shelter in Bed-Stuy. His barks filling the quiet Elias's absences left. We'd walk him along the promenade, hands linked, the Manhattan skyline a glittering promise. But promises fracture. The call came on a Tuesday, Elias's phone lighting up with home. This time, I listened from the hallway as his voice cracked. "Mom's sick. Cancer. They want me there." Now, the world tilted. Emerged. Collapsing onto the couch. I have to go, he said. Not a question. I nodded. Throat tight. We'll go. Together. He shook his head. Fierce. No. This is my mess. Our mess, I countered. Kneeling before him, hands on his knees. Love doesn't end at state lines. The flight to Ohio was turbulence incarnate, mirroring the storm in his eyes. Columbus greeted us with flatlands and fluorescent strip malls, a far cry from Brooklyn's pulse. His childhood home was a squat rancher on the edge of town, cross-stitched Bible verses framing the door like warnings. His father answered, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, eyes the same whiskey shade but hardened by judgment. Elias. The word was neutral, but the glance at me screamed volumes. Friend. Husband. In spirit, Elias said, chin lifted, my hand firm in his. The air crackled, old wounds suppurating. Inside, the house smelled of pot roast and mothballs. His mother frail in a recliner, chemo-ravaged but smiling weakly. My boys, she whispered, pulling us close, her embrace a fragile bridge. The week was a gauntlet, hospital vigils where his father's Bible thumping clashed with my silent sketches of family portraits, reimagined. Elias mediated, steady, but nights in the guest room. He shattered, sobbing into my chest. I hate them. I love them. How do you hold both? You just do, I murmured, rocking him like Rusty after thunderstorms. It's human. The betrayal came subtle, insidious, his father cornering me in the kitchen one dawn, coffee steaming between us. He was always sensitive. Artistic. We prayed it'd pass. The words dripped condescension, probing for weakness. I met his gaze, steel in my spine. It didn't pass. It bloomed. And I'll fight for that bloom every day. He blinked, deflection cracking, and for a moment, I saw the man beneath, the fear, not hate. Take care of him, he muttered, turning away. Elias overheard, later exploding in the car. You don't owe him shit. But I owe us, I said, tires humming on the interstate back to the airport. Healing starts somewhere. Even if it's messy, he quieted, hand finding mine, the heartland blurring past. Mom stabilized. Enough for goodbyes laced with tentative peace, his father's gruff, come back soon, a hug from her that lingered. Back in Brooklyn, the city embraced us fiercer, as if jealous of our absence. Elias channeled the chaos into music, a raw album about roots and rebellions. My art its visual echo. Derived. Scars badges now. Yet winter loomed, and with it, the specter of loss. Mom's remission faltered, updates grew grim. Elias withdrew, gigs faltering, our bed a chasm of unspoken grief. The climax shattered on Christmas Eve. Snow blanketed the burrows, muting the chaos, as his phone rang, final, irrevocable. She's gone. He broke then, not with tears, but rage, fists through drywall, screams echoing our empty apartment. I held him through it, Rusty whining at our feet, until exhaustion claimed him. Funeral was a blur of black suits and hymns, his father stoic, siblings awkward strangers. At the graveside, under leaden skies, Elias spoke, eulogy a tapestry of truths. She saw me, Love me. Even when it hurt. His voice held, but eyes sought mine. Anchor in the gale. Betrayal's shadow fell not from family, but within, on the red-eye home. He confessed. Voice muffled against my shoulder. I almost stayed. After she. When Dad said, family needs you. Thought maybe I could fix it all. The plane dipped. My stomach lurching. And now, I choose you. The life we built. His hand in mine. Promise sealed midair. Landing in LaGuardia. Snow swirling. We emerged changed, forged in fire. Umbered. Spring 2026 bloomed tentative. Cherry blossoms tentative confetti against the gray of lingering grief. Elias's album dropped to indie acclaim, reviews hailing its visceral honesty, tracks like Fire Escape Vows, climbing playlists on queer stations from WNYC to LA's KCRW. My illustrations accompanied the vinyl sleeve. Intertwined figures rising from ashes. A metaphor we lived daily. Success brought its serpents, offers from labels demanding tours. Managers sniffing polish over edge. Elias navigated with wariness, turning down a Coachella slot that clashed with our no compromises pact. Not without you, he'd say, pulling me into recording sessions in lofts that smelled of weed and vinyl, my sketches evolving beside his chords. But grief's undertow pulled subtle. Anniversaries of her passing triggered silences. Nights where he'd stare at the ceiling, guitar untouched. I'd coax him back with walks along the Brooklyn Bridge, wind whipping our scarves, Rusty tugging at the leash. She'd love this mutt, he'd murmur, and we'd laugh. Fragile but forward. Jordan's ghost resurfaced in summer swelter, a mutual friend spilling at a Bushwick barbecue that he'd spiraled. Overdose scare after his Chelsea fling imploded. Karma? Elias joked later. But his eyes held pity, a mirror to our own near misses. No, I said, tracing his tattoos in the hammock strung between fire escapes. Just reminder, we got lucky. Though, is fickle. The conflict brewed in fall. Leaves turning trader gold. When Elias's father called, not with condolences, but ultimatum. Your mother's will. Trust. Come sign, or lose it all. Though all was modest, farmhouse equity, savings, but laced with leverage, family legacy for the prodigal. Elias paced our kitchen, phone clutched like a grenade. It's a trap. Bait to drag me back. Then cut the line, I urged. But doubt flickered, his eyes on old photos I'd unearthed. A boyish Elias grinning gap-toothed beside his mom. He went alone. Flight booked for a weekend. Swearing just papers. In and out. I nodded. Kissing him fierce at the gate. But anxiety gnawed like Rusty's teething face. Radio silence stretched, texts curt. Calls to voicemail. By Sunday night, panic clawed, a mutual cousin's post on X. Innocuous photo of the farmhouse porch, Elias there, arm around his father, smile strained but present. Betrayal bloomed hot, irrational. When he landed Monday, duffel slung, I waited arms crossed. Cozy reunion? His face fell. It was. Papers? Right? Not playing happy family? Sarcasm dripped. Venom from insecurities well. He dropped the bag. Stepping close. Dad pulled the guilt card. Showed me her letters, ones she'd hidden, begging me to forgive. I stayed an extra day. Nothing more. The words landed, but the image lingered. Him there. Me here. And if he offers absolution? A rewrite where you don't have to choose? I already chose. Frustration cracked his voice. Hands raking hair. You think this is easy? Carrying the weight of what they did. What I lost. We erupted then. Brooklyn's skyline witnessed to our unraveling. Accusations of clinging to pain. Of me projecting Jordan's abandonment. Plates shattered, metaphorical, then literal. A mug hurled in fury. Rusty cowered under the bed as Elias stormed out. Door slamming like finality. Hours blurred in regret's haze. I cleaned shards. Texted apologies unread. Paced the fire escape where it began. Dawn brought clarity. Love wasn't perfection. It was this, messy. Mending. He returned at noon. Eyes red-rimmed. Bearing coffees and a manila envelope. The will. I signed. Told him, I love you. But I can't live your truth. Walked away with nothing but closure. Relief crashed. Pulling me into his arms. I'm sorry. For doubting. Forgiven, he whispered. Lips brushing my temple. We're both works in progress. Healing deepened our roots. Therapy became ritual, queer-affirming sessions in the village. Unpacking Ohio's fallout. Jordan's echo. Elias journaled lyrics from the couch. I sketched our sessions abstract. Therapy's tangle rendered in ink. Winter whispered warnings again. But we armored better. Holiday traditions forged new. Tree trimming with Rusty's chaos. Feasts with chosen family. A queer potluck in our building's basement where stories swapped like ornaments. The high tide of joy crested in spring. Elias's tour, a modest East Coast run. Indie venues from Boston to D.C. Come for the Philly show, he begged. And I did. Trading a deadline for a sleeper bus. Arriving to backstage chaos and his beaming face. The gig was electric, sweat-slick stage. Crowd chanting lyrics we'd birthed in bed. Pose. In a green room hazy with smoke. He pulled me close amid bandmates' cheers. This is for you, he said. Kissing me deep. The world fading to us. But joy's shadow is hubris. Back home. Success's serpent struck. A label offer. Real this time, major distribution. But with a morality clause buried in fine print. No scandals, the suit in Midtown droned. Eyeing Elias's tattoos. Clean image wins. He laughed it off initially. But temptation gnawed, stability. The dream concretized. He'd scroll contracts. Brow furrowed. What if we play their game? Just enough to build our own empire? I saw the fork, compromise or conviction. Or we burn it down. Bill Queer. Unapologetic. Tension simmered. Spilling in a July heatwave. Rooftop barbecue with friends, grills smoking. Beers sweating, turned interrogatory when a bandmate pressed. Take the deal. Change from inside. Elias's retort was fire, or stay true outside. But later, alone, he confessed fear. What if we fade? What if loving fierce means starving? I held him. City hum below. Starving together beats feasting alone. He chose us, ripped the contract in a video for his fans. Going viral in queer corners. Backlash came, trolls spewing hate. Gigs cancelled in conservative spots. But allies surged, fundraisers. A doc short on authentic art premiering at Tribeca. Through it, our love tempered steel. Intimacy evolved, less frantic, more sacred, slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane. Bodies mapping scars like constellations. Fall brought the storm's eye, his father's passing, quiet in sleep, a letter arriving like an olive branch. Proud. In the end. Tell Cameron thanks for making you whole. Elias read it aloud. Steady. Tears silent tracks. We scattered ashes in the Scioto River on a gray November day. Me beside him, hand in hand. To complications, he toasted with river water, and we laughed. Free. Winter wrapped us gentle. Holidays hearth warm. New Year's. Fire escape perch. Rusty curled between. We toasted to creeping in and staying. 2027 dawned with promise's edge. The city shedding winter's husk for spring's restless vigor. Elias's Rebel Run tour sold out, queer festivals from Fire Island to Provincetown. Stages alive with anthems of defiance. I tagged along for chunks, sketching live amid the throng. My portfolio swelling with tour posters that captured sweat-glistened triumph. Home base held steady, our brownstone a haven. Walls adorned with framed art. His lyrics scrawled in Sharpie. Rusty grew lanky, chasing squirrels in Prospect Park. His barks punctuating our runs where we'd plot futures, a studio space. Perhaps. Or a queer arts co-op in Bushwick's evolving sprawl. But evolution breeds collision. Success magnetized vultures, X's resurfacing. Hangers-on with agendas. Pardon? Sober now. Emailed a mea culpa, grew up. Happy for you. Which I shared with Elias over brunch. Laughing at the audacity. Block and forget, he said. But his grip on my hand tightened. Old insecurities stirring. Mine too, whispers from fans fawning over his stage charisma. DMs speculating, who's the muse? We armored with ritual, date nights at Coney Island. Cotton candy dissolving on tongues as Ferris wheels creaked overhead. The Atlantic's roar drowning doubts. Sex was our sacrament, exploratory, farming. Bodies dialoguing what words fumbled. The rift cracked in summer's blaze. A festival in the Catskills, headlining slot. Mudslick fields teeming with rainbow flags. Backstage. Preset jitters. Elias downed shots with crew. Emerging loose-limbed. Electric. The show scorched, crowd a sea of raised fists, but post-encore. In the tour bus haze. He vanished into a huddle with a sound tech. Young and adoring. Laughter spilling too intimate. I waited, beer warming in hand, until nausea twisted. Confronted him later. In the bunk's dim curtain, flirting or foreplay? He blinked. Bleary. It's nothing. Adrenaline crash. You know how it is. I know betrayal's face, I snapped. Jordan's echo amplifying. The bus lurched to a halt at a rest stop. And I bolted, hailing a cab into nowhere, tears blurring taillights. He found me at a diner. Neon buzzing, open 24/7, nursing pie and spite. Sliding into the booth. Eyes contrite. He reached across for Micah. I fucked up. Not with him, swear it, but by not seeing your hurt. The tour's a beast, I get lost in it. Vulnerability disarmed me. I get lost too. In fearing you'll find better. We drove back in silence's truce. Bunk shared chastely. Morning's light forging amends. No more ghosts, he vowed. Fingers laced. Just us. haunting each other right. Fall deepened bonds. Co-op launch in a gutted warehouse. Our queer collective, artists, musicians, activists, painting walls with manifestos. Opening night. Champagne fizzing. Elias performed unplugged, dedicating to the stranger who stayed naked and true. Laughter rippled. But emotion choked me, pride. The ache of how far we'd clawed. Winter tested resolve. Rusty's diagnosis, hip dysplasia. Surgery looming. Bills stacking like snowdrifts. Freelance dried amid co-op chaos. Elias's royalties lagged behind hype. Stress simmered. Spilling in petty barbs over budgets. Unspoken fears of failure. Climax crested New Year's Eve. Blizzard stranding us indoors. Power flickered. Candles guttering as we hunkered with wine and board games. Rusty bandaged at our feet. Midway through Monopoly, ironic empire building, Elias paused. Bored forgotten. If this crumbles, the co-op? The music? Us, what then? The question hung. I set the thimble down, meeting his gaze. We rebuild. Like always. Naked intrusions and all. Tears brimming, pulling me across the board to the rug. We made love by firelight, slow and sacred, reaffirming vows unspoken. Dawn broke white and wondrous, power surging back. But the real thaw came weeks later, a grant for the co-op, my solo show booked at a Chelsea gallery, queer narratives, Elias's music as soundtrack. Gallery night was catharsis, walls alive with our story, sketches of fire escapes, scarred palms, intertwined shadows. Elias emceed, voice weaving songs between pieces, ending with Creep, a new track, you slipped in bare. Stole my guarded heart / now we're dressed in forever's art. Crowd hushed. Then erupted, tears streamed my face as he found me in the throng. Kissing me amid applause, a public claiming, unapologetic. Betrayal's final shadow lifted that spring, his father's solicitor. Final bequest, the guitar. Rest wrung by Elias's hands. With it, a note, play true. Love fierce. For her, he did. Composing an opus we debuted at the co-op. Me visualizing in projections dancing on walls. Years blurred forward, co-op thriving. Rusty hobbling happy into old age. Our union legalized in a quiet ceremony at City Hall, rainbow rings exchanged under confetti of shredded sheet music. Reflections came on anniversaries. Fire escape perch eternal. That night, Elias mused one eve. City lights winking below. Naked and terrified. You let me in. And you changed everything, I replied. Head on his shoulder. In America's relentless forge, Brooklyn's grit, Ohio's ghosts, success's snares, is no fairy tale. Its intrusion, fracture, rebuild, human, pun, holy. We crept into each other, strangers no more, and in that changed everything, found grace.